Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into this classic episode of the show. Visit our website, whoknewpodcast.com. Email us at whoknewpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter and on Facebook at Who Knew Podcast. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/whoknewpodcast. Today we're taking a quick trip in the Tardis for the Remembrance of the Daleks. This story is written by Ben Aronovich, directed by Andrew Morgan. It originally aired on October 1988, which is the 25th anniversary of the series, and it first premiered in November 1963. Episode 2 got the highest viewers, 5.8 million viewers. The Seventh Doctor is played by Sylvester McCoy. Ace, his companion, is played by Sophie Aldred, and the music is done by Kef McCullough. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, this is Arlene.
Hi, I'm Josh.
Hello, this is Auburn.
Hi, this is Frank.
Hi, this is Kelsey.
And this is Brian.
And this is Eugene. The Doctor and his companion Ace arrive in 1963 London and are watched by a young girl who knows his identity. The Doctor enters a surveillance van parked outside Coal Hill School and meets Professor Rachel Jensen, who is working with the military to track odd magnetic fluctuations. Meanwhile, Ace meets Mike Smith, a sergeant in the army under Group Captain Gilmore. They all respond to a summons from Gilmore and meet him in the I.M. Foreman scrap merchant junkyard, where they fight a lone Dalek. The Doctor destroys it with the help of explosives from his companion Ace.
Do they establish the year at all on screen before we kind of realize what year it is?
There's that opening shot where you hear Kennedy speaking, Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech.
Charles de Gaulle.
It's the guy speaking in French.
Duke of Edinburgh.
I didn't.
Yeah, so of course all the little kids hiding behind their couches are going, "Oh,
Right.
1963."
Yeah, no, I didn't get that at all.
Did say it eventually.
Yeah.
Like the third episode.
But there's a lot going on in this episode. Like Eugene said, this was their episode for the 25th anniversary. The very first episode, the two companions that the first Doctor picks up are teachers at Coal Hill School. The scrapyard, I.M. Foreman Merchant Scrapyard, is where those two teachers meet. That's where the TARDIS is.
Well, the TARDIS is parked there.
So this all happened before this particular episode.
In the first episode.
This was the first
very
episode
first.
ever aired in 1963.
With the first Doctor.
Oh, you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
These are all Easter eggs to the very first.
Gotcha.
And
So they're revisiting where the first episode took place.
And
That's
That's
why
why-
'cause he keeps saying he knows this, or I was here before, and things like that.
yeah.
and does he have the Hand of Omega in that first episode or the
No.
first arc?
No,
Okay.
this was written.
With the Hand of Omega.
So it is Omega.
Introduction.
Not
Omega.
Omega.
Depends on your accent, but yeah.
Yeah, like halfway through the whole all the episodes, I'm like, oh, is it Omega?
It's like schedule versus schedule.
Yes.
Whatever.
It depends on where you put the accent, on which syllable.
Right.
And Omega has appeared before. This episode is filled with
Easter eggs.
for the
Parents.
yes. Yeah.
And what's odd for us looking back on it is how Ace is dressed and when she's
I know.
carrying the boombox and having the big bomber jacket. She's from the 80s. So we already think of it as a timepiece, but it was the correct time when it was airing.
That's what
for
I
Ace's-
found overly funny is that she is typically 80s, like almost like, hey, what did they have in the 80s? They had this, they had that, and the other thing.
Right.
But it was in the 80s, so it's like, how did they have the presence of mind to...
They were
Do
just
something.
fashion forward.
Very typical.
Ace is an interesting character because this is her first.
Official episode as a companion.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Really?
So,
Yes.
Because-
She was introduced in the serial previous to this where
Called Dragonfire.
the current companion of the Doctor left. So Ace was introduced then.
why does she have a baseball bat? What's the...
Because Ace is
A thug?
yes, she's an anarchist.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So she is from the 80s in Britain of the, I don't know, I guess soccer hooligan kind of
Yeah.
mentality. She's an anarchist. And that's why she literally does have homemade bombs in her backpack because
Okay.
they were going around blowing things up.
That's why she's so tough.
But she has a heart of gold.
Right.
Another thing to set this in 1963, like Brian was mentioning, those speeches. It's a weird connection how the original episode, or the first episode of Doctor Who was preempted because of the assassination of President Kennedy.
Really?
And so to play that here kind of reminds us of what happened.
Yeah.
How fun. And
Yeah.
assassination memory.
In the discussion that Mike has with Ace about the money,
Yeah.
when Ace goes to get food.
Yeah,
I was very confused.
In 1971, the United Kingdom changed their monetary system because it wasn't based on, they call it the decimal system. The US was always based on the decimal system. Everything was a factor of 10. So 100 pennies make a dollar. In Britain, before 1971, that was not the case. It was 12 pennies made a shilling. 20 shillings made £1, which meant that £1 was 240 pennies. And then you had guineas and half crowns and halfpennies and tuppence and all this different other things. And so that's why a lot of the times before 1970, if you're watching British shows, they'll say things cost and they'll say three numbers: £1, 20, and 5. But in 1971, to
Streamline.
thing, they changed everything so that it became £1 equaled 100 pennies, and they got rid of shillings. But then they would have like 10 penny coins, 10 pence coins. They converted like the coins would still be in circulation. So if you had a 10 pence coin and a 1 shilling coin that was old right next to it, they equaled the same thing. So because it was just too confusing, they literally just went, all right, on this date, boom. This is the new way of calculating the
we
money.
get new stamps.
That's why you buy forever stamps.
Right, exactly.
So we learned something today.
Yeah, I was
They're
very
really
confused.
trying to pound home that
Pound.
this is the 1960s. Things were different, and this was when the show started. Look at how much has changed in the 25 years.
I think too. That's what the costumes weren't bad, but just the way that they were and the quality of the video of the time. It felt like a 1980s school play. So I wasn't familiar with the uniforms of Britain. So for all I knew, it was the 80s, and he didn't look all that different.
It kind of baffles me because I watch this, I'm like, okay, they're in the 60s.
Wow.
As soon as
You're
I
a
watched
teacher.
it, and the money changed. I don't know which year it changed, and she was obviously in the 80s, which was interesting to me because that's something that bothers me in the new Doctor Who, because they'll be wearing their normal clothes walking around in another time period and they don't address it, and I like how it was addressed here. Hey, you obviously don't fit in the boombox and a bat.
I did have a boombox like that. I did not carry it on my shoulder.
In the
Good
60s?
for you.
We all had boomboxes.
Yeah, those were great.
Was that a double cassette one? I didn't notice.
Was it a double
was.
cassette?
Of course.
Yeah.
It had to have double cassette. And her jacket, she's wearing a bunch of space shuttle patches, including the Challengers.
Oh.
So that always makes me a little sad.
I want to know why she calls him Professor.
Ooh,
That's her thing. That's like her thing. She was just calling him professor, and he would correct her, and then she would never learn, I guess. And so she kept.
She's an anarchist.
right.
She kept using it interchangeably.
Just his nickname.
Yeah.
Well, she seemed, when it was really important,
Doctor.
she would say doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
to
she
be sure
would.
to get it. But otherwise, it's more of just a
Term of
teasing pet
endearment.
name.
Yeah.
I think.
Switching things a little. That fight with the Dalek in the junkyard, that is the first time we get Alburn's favorite effect of the skeleton
I know.
shot.
I loved it.
I
The
thought of
first time.
The energy beams
Yeah.
showing the skeletons of the people. That's where it started,
This
so
is
it
the
didn't
first
come
time.
back.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I really like how they adapted it then in the modern regeneration.
Yes.
As a whole, I felt like the graphics were pretty good. I mean, they were obviously video, toaster kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The floating, we'll get to it, the
Yeah.
floating stuff.
I thought that too.
It was believable.
In fact, I had to watch it a couple times thinking, is it practical?
Yeah.
Or is it, but we'll talk about it.
It was a
when we get to it.
combination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, the Daleks were great.
But even the way they
too.
used the video toaster effect, it all worked with
Yeah.
their intent. Nothing
Yeah.
seemed like they missed the boat.
Yeah.
And man, do they like blowing stuff up?
They spent a lot of money in this one.
It's the 25th
Every time
anniversary.
and because it was video and felt like you were in the room with them, whenever they actually broke something, I was like, oh, they're actually breaking it. They can't use it again.
So, for someone who knows nothing about movie making, what's a video toaster effect?
I don't know why it's called a toaster, unless that was just sort of a nickname.
Yeah, probably a brand.
It's the effects they were coming up with in the 80s that were all based on video stuff that looked like the stuff that they did. Those the lights and
It's just a cheap early
Yeah.
computer graphic
Okay.
kind of thing.
cheap video effects.
yeah.
Okay.
But I thought they worked well.
They did work well.
in their subtlety.
Yeah. So,
So
they were
whenever they had something aimed or in a certain area, I was like, oh wow, they actually
Yeah.
Actually got it.
Yeah, so they're referring to all the laser beams and stuff.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to point out is that Mike Smith's gun is the Sterling submachine gun, which is used for the Stormtrooper gun.
Oh.
Oh, really?
That's the base model for it. It's an
Oh, okay.
actual service submachine gun that the British Army used.
They got me right into the episode when the little girl knew who the doctor was.
Yeah.
I mean, little girls can be so creepy.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they go
She was
for.
very
It's like-
creepy.
Being introduced to the show with the 2005 incarnation, I liked this doctor. I felt like he really looked cartoonish, especially with this big plastic umbrella and all the question marks.
Sylvester McCoy is
A performer.
not in a derogatory term. He's a clown. So he does all that vaudeville kind of stuff. He has pretty much put spoon playing in every character he's ever done, except for he's Radagast in The Hobbit. And he said he was fighting forever with Peter Jackson, trying to figure out a way to get him to play spoons, but it didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
So you guys remember who Radagast is in The Hobbit?
Yes, he's got
Okay.
the rabbits.
The other wizard.
With the birds in his hat.
Yeah, but I liked him. The only thing I didn't like was his face in the opening credits, and his hair looks totally different, and I don't even think it looks like him.
That's
But-
how they do it in production. Like John Pertwee's hair is so much shorter, the way they did that in his intro, than how he is on the Third Doctor. And this one, they like spray painted his face gold or silver. I can't remember which one.
Oh, it's not just the lighting.
It's not the
or
light. They
the
painted
effect?
his whole face and hair, and then he
Oh,
winks at
that's
the camera.
probably yeah, because his hair looks coiffed and hairsprayed.
But
and
that's just how it's been.
This is also an interesting time for Doctor Who in general. The show just came off of the Sixth Doctor, who was not very well liked.
Which guy was that?
That was Colin Baker, and he's the one who wears the really
The loud clownish suit,
the multicolored jacket, things of
curly
that
blonde hair.
So the show was, the ratings were in decline. The BBC was beginning to turn on the show. We discussed it before, where they were generated to the Seventh Doctor, so they tried to make him as opposite the Sixth Doctor as they could. And the Sixth Doctor was very abrasive and very harsh and really didn't like humans all that much. So they brought in Sylvester McCoy. He was much more clownish, much more childish, and that didn't work.
Oh,
and
so he didn't come across well either with the public.
not at first. And he was in really bad episodes. This Remembrance of Daleks was the beginning of his turnaround. So they kind of tried to make the Doctor a little bit deeper, a little bit
More serious. He's taking it a little more serious.
Yeah. There's more layers to him. So they were really trying to repair the show, but by then the damage was done.
Well, I think this is a good episode then to be introduced to the Seventh Doctor, because I agree with Josh.
Yeah.
I liked him.
The only thing I kind of didn't like was a lot of what he was doing felt rushed. I kind of wanted him to slow down a little bit and doctorize. But I understand the British accent very well, but I had a little trouble just because they were talking so fast.
Yeah.
He's Scottish because he rolls the R's.
He actually reminds me a little bit of Tennant. It felt very that kind of doctor, so I was like, he's a doctor.
Yeah, he says silly things very seriously.
Yeah.
It if I was introduced to the Daleks like this, I think I would have liked them.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Still don't like them, but if this would have been the introduction, I think I would have liked them.
This Remembrance of the Daleks reminded me a lot of that first
Yeah. Yeah.
episode.
Dalek.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There's a lot of
There's a lot of callbacks they're doing to Remembrance.
When you said that he reminded you a bit of Tennant, I thought of you when he leans down and he tastes the scorch marks.
oh right.
on the pavement. It's like, that's a Tennant thing. The doctor tastes. Yes.
He did.
So gross.
I did get a big kick out of the filmmaking shortcuts they took to kind of get around that they couldn't do this with the set or that with the set, but it was very pretty ingenious how they planned to make it all work.
Back to the Seventh Doctor, the script editor for this version of the show is Andrew Cartmel, and he wanted the Doctor to be more of an active protagonist rather than somebody that was just dealing with the situation. So that goes back to what we were talking about earlier.
The only classic Who episodes that I've watched has been for this podcast. So it's the ones that, Brian, Frank, and Eugene have introduced me to. But this Seventh Doctor, I feel, is the most similar so far of what I've seen to our rebooted current Doctor. It seems like a classic Doctor that I would be interested in watching more episodes of.
By the way, you have seen him before.
That's right.
Yes,
Well-
I know, on the television at the very beginning, but they didn't give him lines or something.
Yeah, he could only talk very briefly.
And we're talking about the TV movie.
Yeah, we see the Seventh Doctor regenerate
Gets shot.
He's in America for 2 seconds, gets shot, because that's how we are, and regenerates into the Eighth Doctor for the TV movie. But yes, but this is the actor that the BBC said under no circumstances could he be in the TV movie. And it was the producer of the TV movie that said, no, we have to have him regenerate. So they brought him back specifically against what the BBC wanted.
Do you think that Sylvester McCoy's Doctor was more well perceived in America than it was in England?
I think so, because he was put in a bad spot when he...
Yeah. Now everybody kind of looks to Remembrance of Daleks and doesn't really watch the bad episodes. It is.
How long was he the Doctor for? How many seasons? Or
Sylvester McCoy was the Doctor for 3 seasons.
Oh, wow. And how many shows in the season then?
You're asking way too many questions.
Okay.
There's a couple other little callbacks here, too. At one point, the Doctor is arguing with the group captain, and he calls him Brigadier. That's a callback to the companion that he had with the second and third and fourth and fifth Doctors, the Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. I don't know if we've gotten there yet, but when they're walking around the school, Ace picks up a book that's titled The French Revolution. That's a book that, in the very first episode, Barbara gives the French Revolution book to Susan, the Doctor's granddaughter. So Susan's reading the French Revolution book in the very first episode, and makes a kind of funny line because she opens up the book, reads, and goes, well, that's not right. So that's another callback to that. And then there's a foreshadowing in this one that we haven't gotten to yet, but I don't want to forget it. The headmaster of this school, when the Doctor shows up, thinks that the Doctor is applying for a job, and he thinks that he's applying for the job of being caretaker for the school, and one day the Doctor will actually be the caretaker for the school.
I'm like, oh, it all makes sense now. See, I know I was watching the whole episode, and I know there was things that I was missing because I'm like, I don't know. All of this is insider stuff that I feel like I was thrown in to watch, and that's why I guess there was no connection. Like,
So that's the school that, what's her name?
Susan went to.
Oh, Clara.
No, Clara.
Yeah.
Clara teaches.
in.
We're only at the first paragraph.
What commercials?
Yeah, this is set. It's all set up.
What commercials did they show during those shows?
None.
Oh, really?
It's the BBC.
BBC has no commercials.
Yeah, oh my gosh, how uncapitalistic.
This is very capitalistic. Ace makes a comment when they're looking at the van with the big antenna on top. And she's like, what is that, a TV detector van? The reason why she says that is because the BBC does not have commercials, but to fund the BBC, you have to pay a BBC license. So for every television set that you own in the United Kingdom, you pay an annual license fee to watch the BBC. And people pirate. And the BBC went so far as to have vans with antennae that would go and scan your house and go, you have 2 television sets, you're not paying your license fees.
Wow.
So that's capitalism. Yeah.
I think that van was one of the reasons I didn't even think it was set in the 60s because it looked too futuristic.
It did
for
look
the
a little
60s.
modern. Well,
Yeah.
80s.
Because of the antenna looks something like that. But they
The
probably
antenna
never
looked
changed.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
And he doesn't have a screwdriver.
no, the 7th Doctor did not have
Did
a
not.
screwdriver. Neither did the 6th.
Does that umbrella do anything fancy?
No, it's just an umbrella.
But the umbrella with the question mark was Sylvester McCoy's idea because he didn't like the question marks on his vest.
I like that umbrella. I like having the
Yeah.
question mark
So
on it.
having it on his umbrella, diminished the ones on his vest?
He wanted to get rid of it on clothing and just have the umbrella be the question mark. That's
But
all.
he didn't.
But he ended up with
Because he lost the
fight.
battle.
and they just made him more cartoonish by giving
Yeah.
him another
Yeah.
question mark.
All right, what else happens in this episode?
That's it. We're halfway through episode 1.
Thank you for listening to.
Mike introduces Gilmore to Mr. Radcliffe, who says that his men can help. Mike introduces Gilmore to Mr. Radcliffe, who says that his men can help. Mike secretly gives Mr. Radcliffe the remains of the Dalek, who in return brings it to a mysterious figure. The Doctor reveals to Ace that he was expecting the Daleks. He has come to retrieve the Hand of Omega before the Daleks can get their protuberances on it. It is a device by which the Time Lords created a supernova to power their ability for time travel, and the Doctor hid it the last time he was here. He and Ace go to the basement of Coal Hill School and discover a transmat device capable of bringing more Daleks. The Doctor deactivates it, but it is attacked by another Dalek. Ace gets out of the basement, but the doctor is locked in by the school headmaster, who is under Dalek control.
This scene is the first time that we see inside of a Dalek. It's transmatting in, and we get a brief view of what the tentacle stuff looks like.
Yeah, so it's very hard to see though. Like I couldn't really make out.
But every time we've seen what's inside a Dalek before, it's been like a one tentacle covered in a blanket or just something. But this time we see it in its form.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. It was really neat to see it materialize slowly into place.
Yeah.
And I think that plays in, not directly, but later with the two factions of Daleks, because we have the one that's
Right.
the
different.
blob and the one that's the blob plus other
claw.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did really like the woman. Was that who Gilmore is? You said Gilmore?
Gilmore's the captain with the mustache.
Okay, who's the woman?
The science advisor.
Yeah.
Jensen?
I really liked her.
Yeah,
I thought
she's
she
a
was
really
really
good
on the ball. And even throughout this whole, all 4 episodes, I felt like the female empowerment, movement was pretty strong. I mean, it was the 80s, and not that it kind of wouldn't be, but considering what's going on today in 2017, I noticed it more, that they were had just as much proactivity as everyone else. In fact, they were
they're
probably
the smart
sharper.
ones.
They were
Yeah.
sharper than everybody else.
I don't think we talk about it in the summary, but later on, she basically tells the group captain off.
Yeah, yeah.
You pulled me out from where I was.
Right.
You brought me down here. I'm going to do what I'm doing, and you can't stop me.
She
or whatever.
figures a lot of stuff out too.
Yeah, I mean, she figures out that this is alien technology.
Mm-hmm.
The group captain can't wrap his head around it.
Yeah, well,
and
couldn't
the
wrap his
doctor
head
makes a
around
comment
much.
of, well, that's just what I was expecting. But then later on, when she is saying, well, that must mean, you can see the doctor like, yes, come on, I'm gonna love it if you get it right, And she's like, it's alien, and then he's like, okay, good. Again, it's almost like what we would call, he's looking for good companion material. I mean, he's not looking for a companion, but he really likes it when they're smart humans.
Another Easter egg is that Rachel Jensen her look is modeled after Barbara Wright, which is the teacher that Brian was mentioning earlier, one of the first companions. Her hairstyle and her wardrobe are very similar to Barbara's.
And also, the doctor makes some references to past adventures, but I like the way that they do it, where he's saying to Ace, do you remember Yetis in the underground? Do you remember the Loch Ness Monster? And she's like, no. And he goes, I love human beings' power for self-deception. Where it's that ongoing thing in Doctor Who of all this crazy stuff happens and human beings just go on and forget about it.
Now, in that case, were those adventures she went on with him, or were those just things that she should have noticed living in the world?
Living in the world,
Okay.
yeah. So Yetis in the underground, that was the second Doctor. The Loch Ness Monster was the fourth Doctor with Sarah Jane. She probably wouldn't have been born yet, but again, she's never told about these gigantic things happening.
Similar in the series that we're watching, where like the Dalek crash into the Tower of London and some other or whatever else
The aliens
happened.
crash, yeah.
Big Ben.
Yeah.
And who was it? Was it Donna? That maybe
Didn't
we're
know
not
it.
there yet. Yeah.
No, we were there.
Oh, we were there.
Yeah, she she
Runaway
does say
Bride.
no. I was scuba diving.
Yeah.
So that they human beings, all these weird things happen, but human beings just go on and it's kind of how they can explain writing these episodes. And
I thought the headmaster, Neen Ace, was done really well. It's like I thought that he
hits a
really,
girl.
Yeah.
really just socked her in the
Yeah, we
gut.
know
and
he's
she
a bad
really reacted
guy.
well with it. I thought that was like, whoa.
I'm actually kind of surprised that the BBC at the time allowed that to air because he really does knee her.
But back to what Brian was saying, the Doctor references the events in these specific episodes: the Dalek invasion of Earth, Genesis of the Daleks, Terror of the Zygons, and the Web of Fear.
And this is our first levitating Dalek.
Yeah, when we covered our episode of Dalek with Christopher Eccleston, we mentioned that this episode, Remembrance of the Daleks, was the first time a Dalek had elevated.
Because it was a running joke. How do you get away? How do you survive a Dalek?
Stairs. Yeah. Also, the scriptwriter Aronovich, he wanted the reveal of the Dalek to be in the middle of the episode rather than at the cliffhanger at the end. And then so the new cliffhanger was the Dalek elevating.
Oh,
And I think
okay.
that was much more effective.
And all those kids are now scared because now the dogs can't go upstairs.
Ace attacks the headmaster and saves the Doctor. They leave to find a weapon to destroy the transmat device. Meanwhile, the Daleks blast the basement door and orders the headmaster to repair the transmat. Once it is repaired, the Dalek goes back upstairs and finds Ace and the Doctor, who have returned with the weapon. Ace uses it to destroy the Dalek. Gilmore says that his evac orders won't come until morning. So everyone go home. Mike's mother has a boarding house, so Ace, Professor Jensen, and her assistant, Allison Williams, stay there for the night.
This is Ace's first adventure with this doctor? Or
First
her
full.
full episode? Her first full episode? And I find that surprising because at the beginning, she's just hungry. And so at first, I was really turned off by her as the companion. And then she's, she kicks ass.
Right.
Like, I was like, oh, all right, she's awesome. And then it took until, like, near the end. So I'm, like, explaining away why they were seemingly so distant at the beginning of the episode. And my explanation was, oh, well, they've been traveling a lot together, and the doctor trusts her. And so when she's like, hey, I'm hungry, he's like, yeah, just go get something to eat. We'll meet up later, or, But then to say that this is her first full episode with the doctor, now I'm like, oh, that ruins my explanation. So, I don't know, it's just interesting.
For me, I think it's just the script writing. They needed them to split up to tell more of the story. But yeah.
And she's also always slipping when she's talking to people of that time, like giving away that she's from the 80s or whatever. She's always confusing something or another when you would think someone who was constantly time traveling would be a little bit more sneaky about it.
Yeah, there are several slips like Josh mentioned, but I think the one that's happened now is the doctor says, oh, you haven't been born yet. And then Rachel pulls her aside and says, what did he mean by that? And then she gives a wink.
Right.
Or something.
And then they cut the scene,
Yeah.
and it's like, I want to see the scene continue.
That's not
Yeah.
Ace's slip up. That's the doctor's slip up.
No, I'm just saying that there's more of those put in, like Ace is the one that it's happening to.
Yeah. Well, even when she's asking Mike about the money, like, she doesn't even think that would be weird. Like, why wouldn't someone know about the money?
Yeah.
Ace is just very independent and self-reliant.
The writing style has changed because in the modern show, they need the companion there for the doctor to give exposition to us as the viewer. And the classic show didn't care. So the classic show just threw you in, and you had to just float along.
Well, there were also a number of other people there that he was explaining stuff to, and who also accepted who he was
very quickly. Yeah, which they do in the modern show too.
Yeah, but he freely explained things to them.
Yeah.
That maybe nowadays
it would just be to the companion. Yeah.
I actually really liked Ace from the very beginning because that's what I dislike about the modern viewing of any companion. They're so clingy and they need him.
But especially Rose, you were very put off by her at the beginning.
And when she became more independent, I'm like, finally, you're grown up. Get over it.
And then she's gone.
And Ace is younger than Rose.
And that's what I said. It's like, see, she's younger. She can do it on her own. And I think that they did a good job of picking someone that can represent a child with an adult that has their own things to contribute. So I can totally see a child relate with Ace and see like, yeah, I would do that. And I would do that. And I'm on my own. And and I'm independent enough to get there. It's that dream that I can be the doctor's companion, and I can do the things that this person does, and it's not like, oh, I need the doctor. No, it's I can see myself as Ace.
And they also didn't take an entire season for the companion to become comfortable in the dynamic with the doctor. When they're walking out of the Tardis in the beginning of the first episode, they already know each other really, really well. Because he says, you're not carrying any of the bomb-making material. She says no, and he knows she's lying.
Yeah, because when he needs it for the Dalek, he says, give me some of that Nitro 9 that I know you don't have.
Yes. And she knows he's going to say that. So,
Yeah.
But this is her first full story. And think about it, when you compare her to Rose, they don't get comfortable until like the middle of season 2. So they're really focusing on, in the modern show, character arcs, which is both a positive and a negative. Because I like the fact that you get a companion and boom, just start telling stories.
But they're really uplifting women like, oh, women can do this on their own and women can do this okay. And I think we've regressed in some of that because it turns into, oh, the woman's in love with the doctor, but the doctor's not in love with them because of this. So it creates like a whole weird dynamic.
Well, things got a lot more romanticized rather than just telling a story.
You know, when we were discussing early on the romantic feelings between the doctor and the companion, remember we were saying in the classic show it never existed?
It doesn't.
This is,
Yeah,
you
but it
know,
doesn't.
this is 900-year-old man traveling around with a 16-year-old girl.
And we didn't think anything of it.
And there's no hint of anything weird or creepy about it.
Yeah, I found it really refreshing, actually. I don't know, like, as an audience member, I accept that. Like, you know, I'm not sitting here questioning. I mean, I guess I was. But only because of the conditioning I've had with
From the podcast.
from the podcast or just the past 20 years of American television?
The way it's all sounding is, we like just starting the story and getting on with the story and the plot. It's like, I do like, and what is positive, a lot of people like about Tennant is that they do have the character development in the relationship between him and Rose. And what Martha has to go through to get where she is by the end of this season that we're doing. So I do like a lot of that storytelling. It's what's modern now going on and how they choose to tell stories. Just know that the older shows told their stories in a different way. And so don't try and bring the modern version to that, and don't try to bring the old version to the modern.
Yeah, I think what happened was in the 80s and prior, like the A-Team, Knight Rider, like it was just action and story, and I think that just ran its course. And then there were certain different things we could probably think of in particular, can't think offhand, in the 90s that happened that started to clue us into more, psychological.
You might get syndication, but you wouldn't get the whole episode to binge watch.
Right.
Kind
And
of idea.
even you watch The Next Generation, like there's a lot of heady feelings stuff in there, and I think that started to permeate more into what we expected from TV. Then there was the Dawson Creek stuff, and then just everyone's emotions just gradually became more important. So, and then reality television, even where we wanted to see real people. So for people to just be like, "Oh, you're from another planet. All right, well, what's that thing?" and then just kind of go with it, seems we wanted TV to feel like real life over 20 years of watching. And I think that's why when we go back and we watch something all of a sudden that's that old, it seems so jarring and albeit refreshing.
That was actually part of the downfall of Doctor Who. They were looking at the next generation in America going, look at what they can do. And we've got a guy with question marks on his jumper.
Right. Well, then they took a break and they came back and they did it.
They did it.
And I think we probably discussed this when we first started, but how pared down Eccleston's Doctor was.
Yes,
He was in a leather jacket and a crew cut. Yeah. And that's it. He had big ears and a big nose, and that was about it.
And
stripped
real
away the
emotion.
continuity,
Yeah.
stripped away his people, his planet.
And I'll tell you,
it's just him.
That's why I watched it, because I was always curious about Doctor Who, and everyone says this is good. I like that guy, that actor. What's up? I like leather jackets.
I like U-boat captains.
Yeah. And I just started watching, and then I got hooked. And now I think I will enjoy the classics more now that, from my point of view, than if I originally watched them.
Well, we're also spoiling you by picking the good ones
Yes.
so far.
Well, yeah.
We are picking the good ones, but I couldn't watch classic Doctor Who.
Oh, you couldn't either, huh?
No, it was hard to find.
It was hard to find, but when I grew up as well.
Because even when it was on PBS,
Yeah, it was on PBS at a certain time.
but it was on PBS, and back in the day, didn't mean that you got the station clearly. It meant
Right,
that it
right.
was staticky, and so it's
Right.
like, do I want to sit there and fiddle with the dial
Right.
the entire time the show is on?
You needed the van's antenna.
I needed the
We had an
send my
outdoor
brother
antenna.
up there. Stand there, don't move. It didn't capture my interest. I was too busy watching Star Trek.
Yeah.
And things that were actually on. And even when Doctor Who came, like I didn't watch the movie. And then when the modern show came all around, I'm like, really? They're going to try Doctor Who again? Are they crazy? And then boom, I can't. We've already discussed it, but it was like the moment I jumped in, I never looked back. And now today, I can watch a lot of classic Doctor Who episodes and really, really like them. And I know I wouldn't have before.
Well, back to this episode, I thought Ace with the shoulder anti-tank rocket launcher was pretty cool.
That was great.
And the Doctor going, well, you killed it. And she goes, well, like you said, I aim for the ice dock. She's a good shot. So I like that about Ace and just love the blowing things up.
In the original script, the Doctor was supposed to shoot the Dalek with that
No.
anti-tank rocket.
Oh, that would have been wrong.
And then
No.
Sylvester McCoy goes, no, give it to Ace. So
Good call.
Much
Yeah.
better for a 16-year-old
Yeah.
to do it.
and if you'll notice, she is barricaded. There's like a table, and then there's the wall of the school. It's like a blank round or whatever, but it actually fires out of the tube, and then you see the scorch marks on the back of the wall.
I didn't notice that.
And then her reaction is like, "Oh, that's real." is real.
Yeah, I got a kick out of when they were showing a lot of the gunfire, how there weren't even flashes in the gun. It was just them shaking the guns.
Yeah.
And with a little bit of smoke and noise.
Right. And then now, since we've had all this action, we have a quiet scene where the Doctor goes to the cafe. You guys remember this?
Oh,
What
I
he's
like
thinking.
that scene.
It's a great
With
scene.
Jeffrey?
Ace wants
With
toast.
Jeffrey's
Yes. I'm glad you guys knew that.
there right away.
That would be Jeffrey the butler from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
That was him. All right.
That's
Yes.
thank you for catching up. So I mean, other than it being Jeffrey, his name is Joseph Marcel, what the doctor is talking about with taste buds and sugar and like I was not expecting that moment, and it was nice to have that little moment to breathe.
And then the unforeseen consequences
Yeah.
that he brings up.
Yeah.
It took me the second viewing to
Me
be like,
too.
oh, he's talking about himself. Oh.
Can you
That's cool. Oh. Yeah, well, at the end of that sugar conversation,
Sugar in his tea, or
Yeah, well, imagine putting sugar in your tea. If you didn't put sugar in your tea, and because you put sugar in your tea leads to slavery and the man behind the counter being in Britain. Because he says, if you didn't put sugar in your tea, I'd be in Africa right now. Because my great-great-grandfather wouldn't
right.
have been kidnapped to Jamaica.
Okay,
and then the
yeah.
doctor says even great decisions or something like that lead to unforeseen consequences.
Small decisions.
Oh, small
Yeah, he
decisions.
just says like a pebble in a pond creates big ripples that it's the butterfly effect
Yeah.
is what he's doing. But the way he does it is really nice. Sometimes you're like, this is a silly little kid show, but every once in a while the script writers just throw something in and they might not even know it themselves. But I just kind of sit there and go, wow.
yeah, this scene is much longer. The extended scene is on the DVD special features, so if you can hunt
really?
that down, it's worth watching.
The doctor goes to a funeral parlor and retrieves an ornate coffin, the hiding place for the Hand of Omega. He uses it to infuse Ace's baseball bat with energy and then buries the coffin in a cemetery. Mike watches this but is attacked by the headmaster who wants to know the location of the renegade Dalek base. Mike says he works for Mr. Radcliffe and the headmaster collapses. Both Mike and the doctor return to the boarding house and all except Ace meet up with Gilmore. There are two Dalek factions, the Imperial Daleks on an orbiting mothership that follow the Dalek Emperor, and the renegade Daleks allied with Mr. Radcliffe who don't respect the Emperor's authority. The doctor creates a device that might disorient the Daleks. Boy, there's a lot going on.
So there's some Easter eggs here. The caretaker at the funeral parlor is William Thomas, and we've seen him before in Boomtown. He was Mr. Cleaver, who Margaret the Slitheen, as mayor of Cardiff, kills in the cold open. And I remember we mentioned that Josh was like, this guy's a good actor or something. And then that's why he was the first actor to act in classic Who and then transition over to modern Who. And then he also was Garant Cooper, Gwen's dad in Torchwood. And so this guy has been around. Then we have the headmaster, who's now dead. He's played by Michael Sheard, who is Admiral Ozzel in Empire Strikes Back and Hitler in The Last Crusade.
Who in Empire Strikes Back?
Admiral Ozzel,
Which guy was that?
the one that gets choked.
They're retconning that the
Right.
first doctor talked with this blind vicar to arrange to bury this coffin. But that doesn't. None of this happens
It
in
hasn't
Earthly
happened,
Trial.
Gotcha.
But that's what the vicar says. You don't sound the same.
Right.
Your voice
Right.
it's changed many times. since-
Right. But in my mind, I was thinking, when maybe it was years and years ago when the vicar could even see
Right.
or something like that. But it was last month.
You're reading too
Yeah.
much into it.
Right.
Yeah.
That effect, though, that we mentioned earlier with the coffin floating, I thought it was pretty good for the
Yeah.
time.
It was very good.
Yeah,
Because
I
they
really
matched the
liked it.
shadow. I was
Yeah.
not
Yeah, there's a lot of
expecting the
different
shadow
shadows.
to
was a
match.
good part.
Yeah.
And going out the door past the guy on the phone, he really sold that. Like,
Yes.
Because I don't think it was really there.
Oh, I assumed that was practical.
Yeah. No. I think that was like a video mat over, and the guy was just sitting there like looking
You can see the mat
from
line
the
around
phone.
it.
Yeah.
You could see that every now and then, but it
But
was
it's still
really,
good.
really well
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. And how it
For the time,
tracks
yeah.
with the camera movement,
Yeah,
too. I
a
was
lot
impressed.
of
Very
planning.
impressed.
And knowing how you do video effects, all I could think is like, well, yeah, they really planned ahead. They had to really
Yeah.
make sure everything was right.
And then they got the cameraman inside the hole of the grave, and then so he throws the dirt,
Dirt.
and it lands on like the lens. I was
Yeah.
like,
Look at
it,
oh,
just
they
put the
did some
camera.
good stuff
Yeah.
there.
I found this thing confusing because they all talk in such a more monotone. They don't, like modern times, highlight when something's really important
Yeah.
and listen to this line.
And none, especially whatever the soldier in charge. What is his title?
Which one?
Group captain?
The
yeah, the
mustache?
group captain.
Gilmore.
He didn't seem phased or by anything. Every line he delivered was exactly the
He's
same
like,
intent.
gentlemen.
My God, man, we're British.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
I like that the demeanor
Yeah.
that may turn you off as the ideal of British generals.
Like stiff upper lip
Right.
type of thing.
But also very bureaucratic. We need to evacuate this area. We need to get approval from this person who needs to get approval from this person. That man follows the chain of command to the letter.
Yeah, but as a result, though, like Frank was saying, it was a little hard to follow. Like, they would say a bunch of stuff, and then they would leave the scene. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I was confused why Mike was even at the cemetery and then had to go back and go, okay, so the funeral guy called up Radcliffe to say that the doctor's leaving with the coffin. And then Radcliffe had to tell Mike off stage to go to the cemetery and find out where they're burying it. And then the Imperial Daleks had to tell their henchman, who was the headmaster, to go follow Mike to the cemetery to find out where the renegade base was. They had to go back and go, okay, wait, who's on which side and what are they fighting about?
And then the little girl just shows up and stands there.
Yeah.
So it
got a
is
little
kind of like,
confusing.
wait, who, what, where, what?
And why
Yeah.
did they kill the headmaster by sending some electronic pulse, the Imperial
why did
Daleks?
they
He
do
had
that?
Kill the
failed.
headmaster.
He knew
because-
too much.
It's all confusing. Even you re-explaining it.
Even made it
Still
more
lost.
confusing.
The thing that did bother me in all of this, where I lost everything and I'm just watching, is that if the Doctor knows how to create a device that confuses the Daleks, why don't we see that more often?
Because the first time he made it, it didn't really work. And you actually see the Doctor goes, it worked!
was
Yeah, I was
surprised.
wondering about
Surprised.
that. You mean, what do you mean the first time he made it?
He makes a reference to, oh, it's a device like I made on Spiridon. Oh. That's a throwback. But he is making it seem like, I can't believe it worked.
Yeah.
And how
right.
about in the new incarnations?
They would have adapted.
They've adapted.
Yeah, but it's like, I feel it's something else that was just thrown in there to save that
Of course.
situation where
Yeah,
she was.
it is. That's exactly
"Come
what it is."
on."
Ace returns to the school to retrieve her boombox. The Imperial Daleks have fixed the transmat and have been sending down troops from their mothership. Ace beats a Dalek with her energy-infused baseball bat, breaking its eye stalk and then jumping through a window to escape. She is soon surrounded by 3 Daleks. The Doctor shows up in the nick of time and uses his new device to disorient the Daleks, while Mike and the others are able to blow them up.
Did you already mention this Easter egg?
Nope.
Because
No.
this was like the only one that I caught. Like,
And this is the Easter egg of all Easter eggs.
yeah, where Doctor Who becomes meta.
Yeah.
And as she's leaving the house, the TV is saying is teasing that Doctor Who is about to start.
Yes, because it cuts off at... And Saturday viewing continues with an adventure in the new science fiction series, Doc, and cuts off.
To Chicago.
And the writer, Aronovich, couldn't resist the reference and clarified that it was meant as a joke and not to be taken seriously. It was originally intended that it was to introduce a new show called Professor X.
Which it was a joke. I
Inspector
mean, I
Spellstorm.
laughed.
At some point in this part of the summer you were talking about, the Doctor takes Ace's baseball bat, dips it into the
Magic Waters.
magic waters of Omega, and now it has a cartoonish strength with pow
Yes,
lights.
but she gets to beat up a Dalek with
I
a
know.
baseball bat, which is awesome.
I just wish the noise it made wouldn't be like.
And then she jumps through a window, and
Yes.
they show glass breaking. Oh, they were happy.
It was so
filming that
funny.
day.
They like jumping around, breaking through stuff, anything they could do. Like, we got to make this an action movie. It looks like a soap opera, so whatever we can do. And it was her too, I think.
Yeah, the only one that wasn't her was the jumping through the glass.
Jumping
They
through
used
the
a
glass.
stunt double, but everything else was her. Underneath the table, hitting the Dalek, yeah, it was all her.
We find out Mike grew up in a racist house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was sad.
They
Right.
keep peppering in all this hints of race and
Purity.
purity and discrimination and prejudices. And,
Yeah.
in
And
the
that's- I mean, that's what the
cafe, and
Daleks
now
are.
This sign, and then it all comes home later.
Yeah, this actually has Daleks meeting Nazis. The Daleks are an analogy of Nazis because to them everything has to be pure.
Yeah.
More on that, Andrew Cartmel, who I mentioned before, the script editor, fought to have that scene in because he was having like a first pass or something with the head of BBC, and he was like, no, we have to keep that in there. And he regrets not doing more. He wanted like Ace to tear up the sign or throw it away or something, but I think it's good that they kept it in there.
It seemed like there should have been more, but I could see
Yeah.
where they have to.
Standards and practice.
Thank you.
On a lighter note, you can see that the pockets of the Doctor and his coat are filled. Sylvester McCoy would put the pages of the scripts that they had completed in his right pocket, and the script that he needed to do are in his left pocket. So that's why his pockets are always filled with things.
One of the Daleks is still alive and attacks the Doctor. Allison beats it with the bat, and they notice how it is mutated and is very different from the renegade Dalek destroyed earlier. They go to the basement, and the Doctor uses the bat to destroy the transmat, but also destroys the bat in the process.
And that's when the tentacle comes up and chokes him, yeah?
Yep, the crab-like tentacle.
And then the new series of Doctor Who, the Daleks are much more they're much more homogenous. Like you don't have these different
Variations.
biological sex. And I don't think they talk about that they evolve, that they have these
change.
mutations. Yeah. I don't think they talk about the mutations as much happening with the different Daleks. But I don't think
the
we've
only
gotten into their history either as much in this new
The
series.
only thing that we're getting is different Daleks surviving the Time War different ways.
Right.
So you've got scavenger Daleks that, feed off of humans who have no place in society.
The Cult of Skaro.
Right. And these
yeah.
things they keep their MO is still trying to find some sort of purity, and then they make the human hybrid. Like it's
Right.
all they think they're doing what their ultimate mantra is, but in reality they're actually evolving like a normal species. So it does really harken back to this storyline.
Yeah.
But they don't have, like in the newer series, it's always like a Dalek is a Dalek until it changes into something unpure. Where here we see these two factions of Daleks, and the Imperial Daleks, the white ones, are the ones that have the claws now. Mm-hmm. And the black ones, the Resistance or the Rebel Daleks,
Renegade.
are the Renegade Daleks,
Are the pure.
are the blobs. What I would
Right.
think is
Are
more
pure,
of a
yeah,
pure Dalek.
right.
But it's a very different take on the Daleks, and I like it for this episode, especially with all of the class and racial questions that it's bringing up, and what does it mean to be pure.
When the Doctor is beating up the transmat with the baseball and it's sparking all over the place, one of the sparks goes right into Rachel's hair.
Yeah,
It's
I saw
like, oh my gosh, this is too real. I
saw that.
really be in trouble.
The one thing about those two women characters, the blonde, she a teacher as well, or a
She was an
scientist?
assistant.
Physicist.
Yeah, she seemed totally purposeless. Did you say Gilmore was her name?
Jensen
Darn it.
is the darker hair.
Yeah, the scientist from the beginning in the van.
And Allison is the blonde.
Oh, that's right, Allison Williams. Okay.
Yes.
She seemed, I guess her purpose was for Jensen to just spew exposition to somebody. I originally thought there was no reason for her.
I saw them as a team.
Yeah, but she didn't say or do much. She was just there to go, yeah, I know.
Which
Oh,
is nice to have a secondary character be that and not the companion.
Right.
I agree.
Cool.
No, and again, the Jensen character, she was very proactive, and she was almost like the Doctor.
Back to that baseball bat scene with the Doctor destroying the transmat. There was a button at the end of the handle so that when he hit it that last time, it
Oh.
would break apart.
I was wondering if that was an accident or not.
No.
So, and then he has that line about
The line where it's
the
like
line where
weapons
it's-
are
always
always
br-
useless in the end.
Oh, yes, weapons are always useless in the end.
And then all we thought was like, he just broke Ace's bat.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Now she doesn't have her boombox. She doesn't have her bat.
She's got a missile launcher.
Doesn't have
gotta
any
make more
explosives,
bombs.
Yeah.
Ratcliffe and his men go to the cemetery to steal the coffin, but are detected by the Daleks in orbit. The odd little girl shows up and watches them. Ratcliffe brings the Hand of Omega to the Renegade base and calls Mike to say it is now in the possession of the Renegade Daleks. The Daleks have no further use for Ratcliffe's men and kill them. The mysterious leader is revealed to be the little girl who is being controlled by the Renegade Daleks. The Doctor has snuck in and disabled the time controller, so the Daleks leave to hunt him down.
I thought that was funny. The Daleks leave, and then enter the Doctor and Ace, and then the Daleks come back. I was like, what, did they just go on a walkabout? Where are they going?
And how did the Daleks get in that tiny little door?
There's a smaller transmat.
Oh, I was just gonna say I like the little girl was great.
Yeah.
Creepy little thing.
But I did think so Radcliffe the whole time never peeked around that chair, see anything.
Well, because to the audience, the whole thing was it's supposed to look like it's Davros.
Right.
I was fooled.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. I
You're
thought it
supposed
was,
to think
yeah.
it's Stavros. Yeah.
And also, they said in the commentary that the little girl was speaking the lines, and then they redid them in post. And so to be on set and have that girl do those lines to Radcliffe was like, that's weird but creepy.
I wondered
Straight face.
Yeah.
because there were some lines that she did say that sounded pretty good,
Yeah.
like that she I was impressed at her acting.
And then the time controller thing is a plasma globe. Remember those things?
Yes, I remember those.
I'm like, that's just what
That was new
is.
technology
That was.
when this episode.
But and then he Spencer gifts.
Yeah.
It was in any novelty shop.
Spencer's good.
any board
You
regeneration
can't find those
chamber.
now though.
Well, that thing came out in like 18 something originally.
It was like
Yeah, but then
Tesla
they became
invented it.
portable.
I'm just
you
saying.
can make a toy out of it.
Yeah.
The doctor does sleight of hand.
and that's
Yes.
That was very
and
cool.
that's actually Sylvester McCoy
And I
doing
liked
that.
it. I'm like, you should do more.
Yes.
And
he does.
And he does in the greatest show in the galaxy or something,
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
And what was the symbol on the wax in the envelope?
It was a stylized question mark.
Oh, okay.
The headstone
Oh.
of
We looked it up.
where he buries the
Coffin.
Hand of Omega.
When Albert said it looked like a butt.
It does look like a butt.
So
Do you know what it
that?
is?
No, don't
I
tell
don't know
us.
That
what
is
it
a
is.
lowercase Omega.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
I knew that. So I took Greek and Hebrew in college.
So my first time watching through, I was like, why did the doctor make it so obvious where he hid the hand? And it's like, oh no, he wanted them to find it.
Right.
I wish our current doctors handed out business cards. That was a funny. Did he do that a lot in the classic series, or was that just
I think-
Sylvester McCoy's?
I think it was him because of his clown background.
I also think he left the card to begin with as because he was
He's
baiting
baiting,
them.
yeah.
Right.
But
Yeah.
the way he did it, I was.
And we've the modern series has really gotten away from the question mark logo. Like I don't think I've seen it. But was that also a classic?
It started with the fourth Doctor. He had it on his. I think the red Tom Baker costume had the question mark.
I don't know.
Is
To
it
me,
because
I think
it's
so.
a Doctor Who?
yeah. So you were calling
What, Radcliffe?
were
Yeah,
you calling
Radcliffe.
Mike earlier a Nazi or the
Radcliffe.
you were calling Radcliffe a Nazi. I kind of missed. I thought you were just calling him a Nazi. I didn't realize that you were actually saying that he was a Nazi. So I think I missed something.
Yeah, I think it's in this last scene, saying that last time my country was on the wrong side of the war, and this time we're going to win. And I was referencing World War II, and that he's a Nazi or Nazi sympathizer, and so
Right.
that showed that he's really the bad guy type of thing.
Right. I guess I do remember him saying that. But I guess I just wasn't following close enough.
It's because how they
Yeah.
spoke, because everything's a little more either monotone or just they don't highlight
Right.
any of the important lines.
Well, Jensen jokes and calls Gilmore basically calls him a Nazi in the shop.
Yeah, because she says something. Yeah.
Jawohl.
That's it.
Yeah.
But that's a joke rather than.
Yeah. But I think it was in the air.
Yeah. Rian.
What?
You said air, and I finished Rian. Arian.
Oh, all right, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, Eugene, I'm not laughing at that joke.
I know.
I'll take any laughs you
Where's
give
my
me.
buzzer?
I think if it was a modern retelling, we probably would have seen a swastika somewhere. Where this, he had a weird 5-pointed black star on his
did he?
collar.
Okay.
I'm not even.
I wondered what that was.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I think a modern audience would be the storytellers would have had less trust in a modern audience and would have definitely have spelled it out.
Well, also too, I wasn't sure for a while until it was totally obvious if he was doing anything that was wrong. Like I wasn't even sure who he was in charge of for a little while because everyone was just so nonchalant about the way they were acting
Right.
that it confused me.
They all run into the school as the Daleks shoot at them. Mike asks why they are still on Earth since they have the Hand of Omega. He tries to cover up his knowledge by implicating Ace, but then admits he didn't know he was working for the Daleks through Mr. Radcliffe. But I do like the fact that when the Daleks are chasing you and shooting at you, you still take time to stop and ask to go to the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike and Ace. You guys catch that?
Yeah.
When all this is done, you want to go to the movies sometimes? Oh, sure.
I like her line. This is where
But I
her-
probably already saw it on TV.
Yeah, that's her slip.
Yeah, that
It's like, the Dalek behind you is taking aim.
That's funny. Because of Ace's delivery of that line, she was almost saying, this is not the time or place.
I just got it as the scriptwriter said. We need to remind people that there's something between the two of them because we're about to reveal to Ace that he's a bad guy.
we're supposed to do this on page 27, so this
Yeah.
is page 27.
It's just very funny. Just staged.
Priorities, whatever.
Yeah.
And since there's no relationship between the companion and the doctor, they throw in the romance here. And they have the young, good-looking Mike, who has an interest in her and even seems like he has more of an interest in her when she's independent and self-reliant. And he likes that. You're really rooting for him. And then she right away goes, you grass. You just are an informant, which was it's a UK term, which I didn't know. We had to look up to find out as a informant.
snitch.
And snitch.
Call him a
And
toe rag at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
toe rag, yeah.
What is that?
Twice.
Sock.
But that is where but it does come from that.
she doesn't hesitate going, oh, but Mike, we had something. It was,
No, yeah.
you're despicable. I already know what your mother's like, and I know that you have that racial bias
No,
to you.
I don't think she
But-
ever had anything from Mike, even from the very beginning, because he was so dismissive of her.
Even when they're getting the sandwiches and the talk about the coins and stuff, I think she did like them. She saw that.
I totally saw she was into him.
Yeah, I did too.
I didn't buy it. She couldn't like him because she's from the late 80s and he's from the 60s, and his idea of who she should be is like so opposite of who she is and who she thinks she is.
Yeah, but she's 16 and a handsome guy smiled at her.
Yeah.
Exactly.
My point was that I like that character trumps looks. When she found out definitely what his character was like, and then he's throwing her under the bus, as the phrase goes. She's like, oh no, it's over.
There was definite flirting the way.
Well, there was that one scene where she's in her bathrobe.
Yeah, that she liked him. She was flirting. She wanted his attention. And then when she finally realizes, okay, no, this guy is a jerk, then she lets him go. Because she did say, I liked you. You toe rag. What was toe rag again?
Toe rag is scoundrel, criminal, or thief.
Scoundrel. I like that.
You toe rag. And she said, I even liked you. Didn't she even say it? Like, I
I
liked
think
you?
she did, but
Those words actually came out of her mouth. Like, I like you.
The Emperor Dalek sends a shuttlecraft down to take the Hand of Omega. The two factions fight each other, with the renegades beating back the Imperial Daleks. They send down a special weapons Dalek, which begins to turn the tide. The Doctor sneaks aboard the shuttle and discovers that the Imperial Daleks plan to send the Hand of Omega back to Skaro.
And that weapons Dalek has seen some action.
They nicknamed it the Rambo Dalek.
They're all pristine, clean. This thing gets like it's just filthy.
It's from all the carbon scoring.
I know. Yeah, that's right.
why not send it down in the first place?
Then we'd have no 3 or 4 part.
True.
But again, they're showing that they had a bit of a budget on this one because you get to see the ship land.
It's a great practical.
The,
Yeah, and that's-
the windows blow out.
Yeah.
But I also love that everything kind of settles down and the Doctor puts his head up, looks right into the camera, and goes, I may have miscalculated.
Yes.
And then
And that was that.
And that was
Credits.
the end of the episode. Which, when they come back and do the beginning of the 4th episode, they do their little recap.
Yeah.
And so, you start back and you see, because we spent a lot of money on
That's
it.
right.
So we're going to see those windows explode and Ace jump over the table again. But we don't see the Doctor break the 4th wall this time.
Oh, we don't?
No.
I don't recall that.
Anyway, the shuttle looks really cool because it's practical. And I like that it looks like storage containers just rearranged to look like a spaceship.
But his access to it was just so convenient. Well, they have this one area on top.
Right.
that I'll just slide on down to.
And luckily, the one Dalek inside of it can't detach.
Can't move.
Oh, is that what it was? Was that why he couldn't get
I
at
am
him?
stuck, or he's like, I cannot disengage.
Oh,
So
I
then the
didn't
Doctor
catch
can
that.
just be like, I'm going to take my time, and you're going to just sit there
And mock
while I
some.
kill you.
Mocks him with him going down.
But I like that Dalek's plunger has
Yeah, that ridge.
sections cut
Yeah.
out, so
Yeah.
it's a key to the thing, like an R2,
Yeah, I like
D2.
that. Like,
Yeah.
That was a nice
how the
touch.
White Dalek's plunger didn't look like a plunger. It looked like metal, like a piece.
Like a tool.
Yeah,
Yes.
like a tool.
I think the Daleks looked pretty. I like their colors. And I like that you could see that they look like they were forged, like they were put together. So very practical. It wasn't just like, oh, this metal thing came in. And there's like more history to it of like, oh no, we put it together. We're creating this army.
And that's why the Battle Dalek is really cool, because there is a lot of battle damage on this Battle Dalek, and he's rusty. And the only thing, though, is that they redesigned the interior and put bigger wheels on it so that it could travel over
The cobblestones.
cobblestones and the sidewalks and that, which makes the thing wobble.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm coming to kill you as I rock back and forth. It's funny.
I was wondering what was making it move. I thought it might have just been someone in there,
It is someone in there.
but walking. I thought
No,
maybe.
no.
Weeble Daleks will wobble, but they won't fall down.
They're still woozy from the transmat.
Yeah.
Mike, who has been under guard, breaks out and goes to find Radcliffe, but is now captured alongside him by the renegades. The little girl has fixed the time controller and orders them both to be exterminated. The special weapons Dalek blows an opening in the wall, which creates a diversion long enough for Radcliffe to steal the time controller. The girl electrocutes him, and Mike takes the time controller and flees. The Imperial Daleks take the hand of Omega and return to the mothership. The Doctor connects communication with the mothership and discovers the Emperor is really Davros, creator of the Daleks.
That was a good reveal. I kind of totally forgot about it. When the little girl wasn't Davros, forgot about Davros. When that thing flipped up.
And that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
And that Imperial Dalek design is something I hate.
Oh, God.
It just looks horrible. Lord Helmet.
Yeah.
That's very fun, yes.
That, I guess, bridge of the mothership looks really good for that time. Like, you can see the screens and all
They
of
put
that.
some money into it.
Yeah.
Because my favorite part was when Alison Williams says, "Well, what are we going to do?" Or something. It was, "Well, you go first," or something, and she just jumps down, and it cuts before she even leaves the shot. She's like, questioning, what are we going to do? And he just tells her to jump, and she's like, oh, and boom, done.
And apparently Dalek technology has it bigger on the inside too.
That's right, yeah.
That
Because
does not
they
match.
jump down, and then 2 seconds later they're
They're
walking out of this hatch,
ramp,
and it's like,
yeah.
that ship only looks like 10 feet tall. So.
Yeah.
And then his umbrella gets stuck in the
That was,
closing door.
Yeah, that was an ad-lib from Sylvester McCoy.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it was also his idea to slide down through a cable with his umbrella.
Oh.
But unfortunately, I guess insurance-wise, he couldn't do that. So they had the guy tipping is the stuntman who had the skeletal effect in the beginning.
was the guy who got
He was
shot.
the same stunt double. In the commentary, he's like, I was disappointed I could not do it, even though it was my idea.
And Radcliffe always going for an angle rather than trying to get out of there or realizing he's working for bad people. He's like, no, if we steal the time controller, then we have leverage so that we can barter for something.
Right.
Always going for that angle.
Always scheming.
Yes.
Davros plans to use the hand to transform Scaro's son into an unimaginable power source. With all that power, he will wipe out Gallifrey, the Time Lords, and the Daleks will become the new Lords of Time. The Doctor warns him not to do it. He taunts him. Davros activates the hand and sends it to the Scaro's son. It makes the son unstable and destroys Scaro. He was tricked by the Doctor, and now the hand is returning on a collision course with the mothership. Davros asks for pity, but the Doctor says his obsession with power did this to himself. Davros seals himself inside the Dalek Emperor armor and escapes just as the hand destroys the mothership.
He zips out of there. Exit. Stage left.
That elevator is super fast when it needs to be.
I guess I just kind of assumed that Scaro got blown up in the Time War or something, but like this is where it happened.
Yeah.
To get a little technical, the Daleks had traveled back in time to this area with the time traveler.
Yeah, they kind
Sure.
of hinted that, yeah.
Yeah, because they were following the Doctor to try and find the hand of Omega.
Right.
So we're not sure if they're
in-
following the first Doctor or
Right.
the eighth Doctor.
So I took as this is time before the Daleks were a thing, because that's why they wanted the time travel technology is to travel better in time. But are they really old, or maybe it's just ambiguous because of the writing?
Well,
in
because to me, Davros is aged. He looks different from the last time we've seen him. So he's consistent with like a linear
Okay.
version. Like he's older than when we first met him. The warring faction part isn't. It happened more recently, and that's not something previous to when we first see the Daleks. The Dalek Civil War was seen that we see in this episode was intended to be the outcome of the previous Dalek story, Revelation of the Daleks, in 1985. Aronovich felt that destroying Scaro at the end seemed like the logical conclusion, but then he regretted that decision. He felt that it was best not to have done that in the long run. So to me, those events, those two things, kind of cement these events now that they're further along in the Dalek timeline.
Okay.
So if these Daleks in the show are from a future Scaro, what happens when back before that Scaro was blown up?
Well, the hand of Omega, they say, travels through time too. It goes to whatever these Daleks' present is.
Well, then that would solve it for me.
And the way I kind of see the Daleks can go through time, but it's not efficient and it's not
Right.
done well. It's
They're
they
not
have
the
horse and
lords
buggy.
of
They can
time.
get there, but they
Yes.
don't have a Ferrari.
Right.
Because this was the last Dalek episode, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was no more Daleks after
No more
this.
Daleks after this. Ace follows Mike back to his home where he pulls a gun on her. But someone is at the door. He warns Ace not to move as he opens it. The little girl is there and electrocutes Mike and tries to kill Ace. The Doctor finds the last of the renegade Daleks and tells him that Skaro is finished and he no longer has a purpose. He self-destructs, freeing the little girl from his control. As Ace and the Doctor leave, she asks them if they did good. He replies that only time will tell.
You're leaving now, only time. Well, it's the 80s, so 80s came into my head.
I like the line of Davros. He said, now we are the lords of time, or we will be the lords of time.
He says that.
And in the final two bits, where
Two
the Doctor
bits.
goads Davros into sending the hand immediately to Skaro, and then when he's talking to the lone Dalek, he's using words as weapons.
I think they reference Destroyer of Worlds in here.
I think
this
so
point.
too.
And so this is the first time we hear that, and that's carried over into the modern series.
I like the little scene between Mike and Ace, where he has the gun on her, and she asks, "Would you shoot me?" And he goes, "If I have to." He goes, "You might have to."
Right.
Yeah,
You know,
she
so
stands up to
she's-
him.
Yeah.
And we know Mike is dead because he's lying there with his eyes open.
Yes.
Backing up a little bit, that practical of the mothership blowing up looked really good for that time. And then the shuttlecraft going into the mothership looked good too. Like, there were some
Yeah, there
good
was a
shots.
shadow on it and everything. And
Yeah.
you know, like those two things were shot at a different time. And when the coffin was going into the shuttle, there was a shadow that was cast on it, and you know those were shot at different times. So it was really well done.
You have to take into effect
Well, we're
what
also-
it's a weekly show and what budget they had to work with.
But we're also only a year away from Best of Both Worlds on Star Trek. And look at how that looks compared to how this looks.
Yeah.
I mean, it does seem to be very different.
Yes.
Yeah, 88 was when Next Generation started, right?
87?
87.
87. Yeah, so that had already started. So it's night and day. But again, it's a different production value.
And I did like that the Doctor said that the Hand of Omega is on its way back to Gallifrey.
I did too.
Oh, I
It's a
didn't
small
catch
little
that.
cat. Yeah, I'm so glad I caught it the second time because
Yeah.
it's like, well, did it actually travel to Skaro, or was that something else? And then there's a ricochet back, or is
Did they ever
got
explain
confused,
what the
but
purpose of it is in the first place?
Stellar Controller. I
Yeah.
think that's what he said.
It's a nickname.
It's a manipulator
It's
of
an actual hand.
stuff.
yeah.
It's like totally stellar.
It's a
it's
remote
a
stellar
controller.
manipulator.
Is that what the thing
And
when he
tubular.
says that and then
Tubular too.
the scientist gal said, "Stellar, you mean of the star?"
Gal? You're talking about all this?
I can't remember.
Rachel
He's
Jensen?
from New York.
Guys and dolls.
Professor. Gal?
He didn't call her a broad.
No,
That dame.
Still, after everything we've gone through.
well, I've never been abroad.
Yes,
But was
I
that
think
line
I
when
think
she-
it's that conversation. I thought he was telling it to Ace, but
Yeah, I
maybe
thought
it
it
was
was Ace.
Professor Jensen. But he's
Stellar,
talking to
like,
somebody, and
Yeah.
he
He was-
talks
yeah.
about the Time Lord who created it and what he created
yeah.
it to do, and it was a friend of mine, and he gave it to me, or yeah, I don't
It's a
know.
friend of mine.
Omega discovered it, and then Rassilon then took that information and made more of the time travel. But it's a long history of Doctor Who.
Because we've actually seen Omega on the show.
Yeah, twice. In the Three Doctor special and then the Arc of Infinity.
That conversation that the Doctor has with the leftover Dalek who like was still on Earth when the mothership blew up, and then how the Doctor, like you said, Brian uses his words to
Oh right.
make him commit suicide. That was the scene that reminded me of the episode
Dalek.
where a lot of us got introduced to Daleks, like Arlene said. That it was called Dalek.
Dalek.
Yeah. Like I feel like I remember the Doctor having a similar conversation about like you've lost, your planet's gone.
You have no purpose.
You have you're and that Dalek too just dies with that from that information, right? Of being the only one left
Well,
of not
Rose is there to pull the Doctor back
Okay.
from that. And then the Dalek continues the thought and comes to the conclusion on his own,
Okay.
which is, I have no purpose, so I'm not a Dalek, so I don't exist. I can't exist.
Yeah.
So he does come to it on his own. Whereas in this one, it's the Doctor the whole way forcing him the whole time to commit suicide.
As we were saying earlier, in the 80s it was more black and white.
Yeah, you don't
Good and
redeem.
bad.
You don't redeem the bad guys.
Yeah, I mean that little girl kills Radcliffe, even though she was being controlled. Like there's a good deal of death in this show.
Just some behind the scenes. Ben Oranovich, this was his first script for TV that he had ever written. The producer of Doctor Who at the time, John Nathan Turner, wanted Doctor Who's 25th anniversary season to start off with a bang, and a bang that they did. They blew up all those Daleks practically, and Oranovich was 25 at the time, so he wrote this at the age of 25. I can't believe that.
So he was born when it first started, and this is
Yeah,
tribute to
it's
that.
like weird synergy going on. And previously, he had submitted an unsolicited script to Cartmel, the script editor, and that script later became Battlefield. His second script was his first televised script. We mentioned Group Captain Gilmore is supposed to be like the Brigadier stand-in for this version. Rachel Jensen, at one point, is Liz Shaw, because she has a similar conversation with Gilmore that Liz Shaw had with the Brigadier in Spearhead from Space.
Liz Shaw's a third Doctor's companion, and she was a scientific advisor.
The director of these episodes, Andrew Morgan, wanted to improve upon his last episode, Time in the Ronnie, and feeling the script was worth it, they put more money into the production, but then the production went over budget about £1,300, and as a result, Morgan was then barred from directing any more Doctor Who. All right, final thoughts on Remembrance of the Daleks.
Boo. I was not entertained at all. I was trying really hard to not fall asleep. The story was fun, but it was not connected. This is definitely for someone who's a diehard and wants to see something cool with the Daleks.
I liked it the more it went on. At first I was like, all right, this is going to be a rough ride, but I guess I just got used to it and then started to enjoy the story more as it got more complicated. I liked Sylvester McCoy, and I was impressed by the women's lib part of it, where it was very even-keeled. I think that there was a lot more there. They did a really good production job, but I think there was more there that was downplayed, like we were talking about earlier. I agree with Arlene, like I would not show this to someone fresh off the bat.
I think I enjoyed watching it. I also fell asleep the first time. It was interesting to get to see a different Doctor. Like, I'm not very well versed in classic Doctor Who, so getting to see Sylvester McCoy and Ace definitely makes me want to see more of their story together and see what else they have to offer. But so maybe you guys can suggest anything that's to this caliber or higher.
I do
We'll
want
get back to you on
or
that.
things to avoid.
I do. It did make me want to see more of that Doctor.
We'll get back to
Yeah.
you.
I thought the story was pretty solid, and I like it more and more the more I watch it.
I agree with that.
Then I pick up a lot of the things, but because of the way the story is told, it still is off-putting and seems superficial. The more you watch it, then you get a little more of the depth and what's going on and what they're talking about. It's just coming from the 21st century way that we tell stories now is so different that you have to stay with it and realize it's being told a different way.
Well, for me, I think that this is probably my favorite classic Who episode that Eugene has made me watch so far.
Made you.
even though I haven't been here for all the quick trip in the Tardis recordings, I have watched them. So I enjoyed this one, I think, the most so far.
You decided to show up.
Yeah, so much so that I decided to come to this recording. Maybe because it was filmed in the late 80s and it was like a television show that I was more familiar with as opposed to like something from the 60s or 70s. I mean, it had some actors that I did recognize and was like happy to see them in this episode. Like the guy who plays Gilmore, I recognized him from Upstairs Downstairs. I did like this, it was fun to watch, and it's cool that it was the 25th anniversary because they pepper in a bunch of really cool homages, and then I feel like there was stuff that I read into it having been a fan of the reboot, so I was able to read in some stuff. So yeah, I recommend it for fans of Doctor Who to watch.
I really, really like this episode. I think it's a lot of fun. I think the Easter eggs and the callbacks all work. I really like Ace. It's become famous now that she beats up a Dalek with a baseball bat. Who fans love that. And it's the best example of the Seventh Doctor. So if anyone ever asked me, if they were interested in watching an episode from each Doctor, this would definitely be the one that I would pick for the Seventh Doctor. And I really, really like it. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite episode of the Seventh Doctor, and this is also one of the stories that reader polls vote as one of the greatest stories of Doctor Who ever. So to me, that's it. all those homages and Easter eggs and callbacks, it's like they're rewarding everybody for sticking through from 1963 till now. And I understand that, if you haven't been and this is your first episode, you wouldn't catch all of those. But for me, I love when shows can do that and not call out to itself too much. And the fact that they put in so many, and I don't know, I just like referencing itself. And then when they blow up, the Daleks, those are practical Daleks being blown up. It's not CG. And then all those explosions. And one story that I'll just relate to in the commentary is that when they blew up those Daleks with the Rambo Dalek in the bridge, like the tunnel bridge, that filled up with so much smoke and then one of them came out of the smoke, and the fire marshal or whatever standing by was just like, oh man. So, to me, that they wanted to start off the 25th anniversary with a bang. I think they really did it. And I really like Sylvester McCoy as a doctor.
I like him a lot.
There is a service now, BritBox, where you can stream them. But this episode is not on there, but his other episodes are. So that wraps up Remembrance of the Daleks. We'll see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook
At The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by our very own Auburn.
Find me at auburnbinkley.com.
You can find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcasts.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
All our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
You can leave comments there or email us at
whoknewpodcast@gmail.com.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who,
the longest-running sci-fi show in history,
and especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell,
Sydney Newman,
Verity Lambert,
Ron Grainer,
and all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.